So, after Mark and Lisa's first love scene, we leave through the window on the left, through the white curtains, and this leaves us above, in a situation of ascent. So now, the flower shop scene starts with us on top of the hill looking down. And we look down at the cars. We see Johnny's white car driving into the flower shop. Now, I like this because at the beginning of the movie, the red car flows into the red curtains. Now we flow out of the white curtains into the white car. And Johnny is going to buy more roses, even though they already used roses last night. It's almost like buying roses is buying fuel, buying stimulant that will keep the sexual machine running. And because he's run dry, the car is white. It's bloodless. It's almost like the tissue of the penis has become, drained of blood. And in order to become erect again, he has to go into the shop, buy more roses. A sign of this is that he's wearing shades again. He's back into his drained, blind state. The car is parked right behind another white car. And in front of this other white car, you can see the third car is white as well. It's like the customers at the flower shop are all white cars. They're all cars that have become drained and need to get more blood, more passion. But also, this shot of two white cars is like a mirror image. It's like Johnny has been split apart, torn apart by Lisa, and has become a duality. He's two identities. As is shown in the movie poster as well, the title for The Room has got this mirror image of its own letters down below. There is a thing of mirror reflections. So Johnny enters the shop and asks for a dozen red roses. Why 12? There are also 12 red candles in the living room. There's 12 as an important number. And because many characters have biblical names that are the names of the 12 apostles, and a lot of these names also double up as Greek names of Greek origin that are, have to do with the 12 Olympians, and at the same time, like in the case of Mark, that have something to do with the horoscope, with the 12 signs of the zodiac. I mean, all of these 12 things in mythology and religion also are connected to months, to the 12 months of the year, and the 12 months being one cycle of life. So 12 roses is like 12 months. A cycle of life has already been run. That's why he's run out of blood, he's run dry. So now he's going to recharge his mortality, in a sense, to get 12 more months, 12 more zodiac signs, and return to Lisa. Now, he asks for this with his shades on. And because of this, the florist doesn't recognize him. Even though he has the same face, it's the shades that make him sort of blind, not only to himself, but to the world. The shades turn him into a completely different person, and the florist doesn't recognize him. Then, taking his shades up, suddenly she sees, oh, it's you. The interesting thing as well is that the florist is dressed in red, like the flowers and like the fire, and this fire red could be the reason why Johnny has to wear the shades when coming in. It's to protect from the rays of the sun, of this sun-like florist that gives back life. But then once he's at the counter, he can already take his shades off. It's like the protection only is necessary when approaching this. Once you're in the center of the mandala, in the center of divinity, he is sort of safe. In the same way that if you get right next to a lighthouse, you're no longer illuminated by the lighthouse. If you're right next to it, the beams don't touch you. Another reason why maybe once he's up at the front he doesn't need the shades anymore is because this blonde woman is wearing shades but facing the other way. Like, they're both two sides of the same coin. She wears the shades and protects herself from the pictures, from these idealized images, and he is also wearing the shades through her, but facing the sun directly with his eyes open, facing divinity. Now, this divinity dressed in red, I mean, could be divinity, but as is appeared in this film, this could also be the red person sitting next to him in the cable car, the red of the demon, of the devil. And the devil has, Hades, the underworld, is protected by the dog, by Cerberus. Now, Cerberus is a multi-headed dog, but, most often represented as having 3 heads. 3 is exactly what Johnny is afraid of. He doesn't like 3. 2 is company, but 3 is a crowd. And yet, in order to have this exchange with the devil, he needs to sort of face this fear. But in a strange sort of way, there's something being sealed here. He will accept going up. He's getting the roses from the source of the 3-headed dog. These roses come from the Trinity, and yet he wants to put them in use to achieve duality. And that's why his plan will never work. So, going back to this blonde woman, she reminds me of Lisa to begin with. And here she's shown to be almost like an opposite of Johnny. Johnny's facing one way, she faces the other. They can't look at each other, they can't see each other. In their relationship, they are not reaching common ground because they're not seeing each other as a person. Johnny sees Lisa as an idealized archetype of a fantasy, and Lisa doesn't see Johnny, she sees almost like the archetype of boredom as well. So here, Lisa, this blonde woman, is looking at images, at postcards, or also sort of like the images of spoons. These represent the things that are shown on them, but are not the actual thing. And she seems to be looking for something in these pictures, with her shades on. Now, also, she wears a handbag of the Hindu god Ganesha, the elephant-headed god. And Ganesha has a lot to do with the removal of obstacles. So it seems like this blonde woman is on a mission to find Johnny in the postcards, or find Johnny in a sense that so that she can finally confront him. And Ganesha also has to do with the written word, and the written word connected to wisdom. This is interesting because in the whole movie, a lot of characters come in and out of the room with books, and they have homework to do, and they have notebooks or lists and written information. Instead of that, Johnny is the only character who has a predilection for the spoken word of the tape recorder. All the other characters write down stuff in notebooks, but he records the actual words, the sounds, into the tape recorder. He wants to get closer to the source. That's in the same way that he's getting closer to the florist. The blonde woman here is getting closer to the representation, to the, not the word, but the ideogram, the symbol represented on each postcard. In connection to the Ganesha thing, though, Lisa, at the beginning of the movie, is told by Johnny to be someone who always thinks of everything. Like, she's bought candles, so Johnny says, "Oh, you always think." And at another point, when she's organizing the party, people tell her, you always think of everything. And this is one of her good qualities, which helps her through in the film. But it has a negative side, on the other side of the coin, it's that she is trying to find Johnny in her thoughts in the same way. This is also an expression of Johnny's psyche, in the same way that Johnny is trying to find Lisa in his thoughts, in his ideals. Here, she's looking at the pictures, trying to find someone who's right next to her. She's trying to find Johnny in her words, her concepts, her mental images, but not in the actual person right next to her, in the same way that Johnny doesn't want to look at Lisa as a person, but as a fantasy. So thinking in this film helps people solve certain problems and certain riddles, but doesn't really help in reconnecting with direct physical experience. Now, to Johnny's right is a green man, a man in a green shirt. And it's a bit creepy because it doesn't look like he's waiting for his turn in the flower shop. It looks like he's actively listening to the exchange between Johnny and the florist. Like he's just peeking in or sort of menacing almost. And he reminds me, in a way, of both Mark and Denny, because they are both two sides of the menace that Johnny faces in his relationship to the idealized Lisa. Because both Mark and Denny, their first appearance is in green. Denny appears with a red t-shirt but with a green shirt on top, and Mark's very first appearance in the street, he's also wearing a greenish t-shirt. And this color green reappears through the clothes in the movie, and I think it has to do with nature. Just the nature and earthiness are connected to real life in the sense of planet Earth. A connectedness to organicness. Johnny is connected to black and white. It's monochrome. It's either this or it's that. It's a total duality. But the green man is analog. It's not about duality. It's about multiplicity and disconnection from ideals and fantasies, connection to what's down to earth, in a sense. That's why his presence is not actively attacking Johnny, but menacing to Johnny, especially in this exchange. Johnny entering the flower shop is like entering the depths of his unconscious. Here are all the things he's scared of and has repressed, and yet he needs to descend, because that's the only place where the devil or the divinity is. That's the only place where he can get libido and re-energize his life. Now, this, the 12 Roses cost $18, which is the age Denny has to reach so that he graduates and becomes a man, and by becoming a man, sort of takes over from Johnny, or Johnny has to stop paying for him. So, when 18 is reached, this will be the day that Johnny has to relinquish his control. Here, the 12 months of the year, this cycle of life, has to be paid with 18. Maybe in a sense, Johnny's father-like relationship to Denny has a lot to do with his continued position of authority over him, and that to pay for these 12 roses, to pay for the libido or the worldly energy, he needs the graduation, the promotion, the ascent from an immature baby face, which he doesn't want to recognize in himself and therefore projects onto Denny, and the ascent from that baby face to a grown person, to a full individual. So he pays the $18 and leaves. Apparently he's a favorite customer, which means that he probably goes there a lot to buy roses a lot, very frequently. And he pats the dog, nice doggy, so that the guardian of hell is okay with his intrusion. Now, before we leave the flower shop, I want to focus on a very specific detail that to me is one of the most interesting things that go on in this scene. The blonde woman with shades is facing opposite from Johnny. They're not meeting, they're not on common ground, and yet she is working hard to try and meet some sort of common ground. So when we enter the shop, she's looking at these postcards, and they all seem to have to do with flowers and animals, nature in different ways, and different kinds of animals. When we enter the shop, I get the feeling, I can't see very clearly, but I get the feeling that the animals on the postcards include a lot of dogs. And as we move through the conversation, she suddenly looks at postcards of cats. We move from dogs. So when we enter the shop, the energy that's already there, the sort of preset base foundation is dog, because we are in hell and we are in the domain of Cerberus. But as she makes the effort to turn this wheel of life around, she reaches cats, the opposite, which is the leopard skin dress, the red dress. But then, as this cat energy is also shed, what comes is at the very end of the scene. This is it happens in about half a second, but she has a photograph in her hands, or a postcard, and she seems to be comparing the postcard she already has with the postcards on the shop, like she's trying to find the postcard she has. She's trying to find Johnny in this situation, and just the second Johnny leaves the shop, she finds him, but it's too late. Just when Johnny leaves, she spots a postcard, points to it, and points to her postcard, indicating that this postcard is her postcard. She's found it, but Johnny has already left. And what she's found, if you look back, the postcard she's pointing to is a postcard of a little panda bear. Out of all the colourful pictures of flowers and animals, the postcard she's found is a black and white panda bear. That is the black and white Johnny. Finally, she's found Johnny's true identity, this monochrome identity, just as he leaves. Which, in a sense, is what has happened in her conversation with Claudette, with her mother, is that she sort of acknowledges that this life is a monochrome life and takes in this knowledge by dressing in black herself.